Richard Syrett is a radio and television broadcaster. He's a writer. He's a producer. He's based in Toronto, Canada. And he's the host of The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett, which is a half-hour documentary TV program. It airs across Canada and the United States, as well as parts of Europe and Africa. And Richard is the host also and the producer of a weekly syndicated radio program. It's also called The Conspiracy Show, and it broadcasts on a powerhouse blowtorch of a station, Toronto's AM 740 Zoomer Radio, a 50,000-watt clear channel station, and it has one of the largest broadcast footprints in North America, and that's where Richard's show finds its home. Richard is a frequent guest host on Coast to Coast AM, the most listened to late-night talk radio show in North America. And I've been on Richard's show as he guest hosted Coast to Coast. I've been on his radio program. I've been on his TV show. And on television, Richard himself, he's appeared in episodes of William Shatner's Weird or What on the Discovery Channel and the History Channel, also in Freak Encounters on Animal Planet, and Destination Fear on the Travel Channel. So this guy gets around. Richard has been featured in 2 full-length documentary films, United We Fall and The Conspiracy Chasers. Richard Syrett out of Toronto, Canada, my dear friend. God bless you, Richard. Thanks for showing up on Freedom Friday today.
Just the way we rehearsed it.
Yeah, it's exactly. I said everything you told me to say. No, you didn't know what I was going to say. I'm doing great, man. Thanks for being on Freedom Friday. It's good to have you with us.
Oh, likewise. Thanks for having me.
Listen, I always enjoy having you on the program. Our listeners go crazy over you, and I know a lot of our listeners listen to your show as well. And hey, why don't you do this, Richard? Tell folks more about you, where they can find your material, your stuff, your website. Tell them about this prophecy conference coming up, because you've got a really famous person that's going to speak there.
All right. Well, let's talk first about the...
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes,
See how I did that?
So, here are the particulars. Yeah. Wednesday, November the 4th, it's fast approaching, and it's going to take place. First of all, the name is As in the Days of Noah. Mm-hmm. We can chat a little bit about that. That's something that's right up your alley, I know.
Oh, yeah.
As in the Days of Noah, and it's Wednesday, November the 4th, and it's at the University of Toronto, the St. George campus, and it's in an auditorium called the OISE Auditorium, OISE. It stands for the Ontario Institute of Secondary Education, but everyone here knows it as OISE, University of Toronto, and it's an evening event from 7 to 10 p.m. And there is one individual that I'm very pleased is going to be flying up, and his name is Carl Gallups.
Oh, my gosh.
Carl.
I thought you were going to talk about L.A. Marzulli. Okay, but go ahead, because L.A. is going to be
L.A.
Yeah.
We will get to L.A.
Okay.
But,
thank you.
Let's start with you. You're going to be coming up.
Yeah.
And you're going to be talking about understanding the trumpet days of Revelation. So we're going to dial back to your previous book, Final Warning.
Yeah. And that book was released in the beginning of this year, so it's still out there going strong, and I'm still doing interviews on it, and people are just going crazy over it because it's coming alive before our eyes, Richard.
I'll say. So you're going to be taking the stage and delivering your presentation, and then you just mentioned, of course, L.A. Marzulli, who is the author of a number of books, perhaps best known for the Nephilim trilogy. And he's also the producer of a television series that's ongoing, and it's called The Watchers.
Yeah.
And he's going to be talking about the Nephilim, fallen angels, how all of this relates to the modern-day alien abduction phenomenon.
Right.
Because, of course, this harkens back to Jesus in Matthew talking about the end times. It will be as in the days of Noah, and of course, then we can talk about what was going on, before the deluge, after the deluge, and so forth. So it all kind of ties nicely together. Your presentation, LA's presentation, and people are just going crazy up here in anticipation, and I'm very excited about it, and very grateful that you're coming up to speak.
Listen, I'm honored that you asked me, and this what I'm going to be speaking on is very near and dear to my heart, very passionate, and as you know, Richard, and you and I've talked about this many times on your shows, etc. But I didn't pull that material out of my back pocket just to write a quote sensational book. I mean, I've been digging, researching, preaching, teaching this around the world for 30 years, and as it has been unfolding over the 30 years. I mean, some of it, when I first started talking, hadn't even happened yet. But as we moved along it, and now, I mean, now China and Russia are in Syria. They're in the Middle East. ISIS has erupted along the Euphrates River. I speak of these things and these kinds of things in this book, and it was before it ever happened. And I'm not claiming to be a prophet. I'm just saying I know what the Scripture says. So I said we need to begin looking for these things. And now we're watching them unfold before our eyes.
Yes. Well, before we begin delving into that, I should let people know where they can get tickets, how they can order. If they go to my website, which is strangeplanet.ca, I've sort of revamped and updated my website and relaunched it, strangeplanet.ca. There's a radio page there where they can find my radio program. There's a TV page for the TV show. Then there's a live events page. And if they click on that, that'll take them to the event, As in the Days of Noah, Wednesday, November the 4th. And they simply click on that event, and all the information is there, phone numbers. They can actually even order tickets right there as well online, or there's a phone number there, and I can give that out later as well. So, again, strangeplanet.ca, go to the live events page, click on that, and you're in.
Okay, fantastic. Strangeplanet.ca, folks. Now, I know some of you are on the evening drive home right now, and you can't write this down, and don't text yourself, don't email yourself, please. Just drive, okay? Just drive and listen to the show. But it's strangeplanet.ca. That's pretty easy to remember. If by some chance you get home and you think, I can't remember, was it Planet Strange Planet? What was it? Just go to carlgallups.com. There's another place right at the top. It says at the very top, today's feature, Carl teaches at Toronto Prophecy Conference, November 4th, etc. That's a link. You can click on that. And you've also got the slides that go across that advertise various articles and information, and 2 or 3 of them are advertising this conference as in the days of Noah. So you can go to carlgallups.com if by chance you don't have the ability to write this down and check it out right now. Otherwise, strangeplanet.ca. And you need to go there anyway. It's an amazing website, and Richard Serrett is an amazing guy. TV programs, radio programs, live events, etc., etc. So all that's coming off Wednesday night, November the 4th in downtown Toronto, right?
It has. Have you been to Toronto, Carl?
You know, when I was a kid, yeah. I used to live in Michigan, and we went over to Toronto, but I haven't been there since, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a beautiful city.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to show you the town, my friend. You will not recognize it when you come.
I can imagine. And by the way, listeners, Freedom Friday, Brandon Bigby will be with me. And so he'll be there, Richard Serrett and I, and Brandon Bigby. We're going to have a great time. Can't wait to meet you. L.A. Marzulli. So if you live in and around Toronto, we have a huge Canadian listening audience. If you're up in the Northeast, and we have a large Northeast audience, but anywhere in the United States, if you have the ability to get to Toronto, please do that, because Richard and I would love to see you, and Brandon Bigby as well. Richard Serrett is my guest. He is the host of The Conspiracy Show, TV program, radio program. He's been all over TV, Discovery Channel, History Channel, good gosh, Animal Planet, the Travel Channel, and produced TV programs, produces radio programs. He's also a guest host on Coast to Coast AM. Richard, you get around, man. I mean, God has blessed you with an amazing talent for media.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's a living, almost.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, with all the talent. Well, and I tell people all the time, the Lord took an amazing personality disorder with me and turned it and turned it into a ministry asset, so...
However he chooses to use us, we have to heed the call, right?
That's right. Hey, talk to us. I mean, your show is amazing, and I've been so blessed to be on your radio show, your TV show, on Coast to Coast with you. That's why I count you just such a dear friend. We have such a great time. But talk to us about some of your recent guests and your thoughts about the prophetic times in which we're living. I mean, things are just unfolding around us at breakneck speed that line right up with what the Scripture said thousands of years ago would happen in the last days.
Oh, well, certainly. And you were on my radio program within the last couple of weeks, and we were talking about things that you touched upon in your book, your latest book, Be Thou Prepared, and certainly the persecution of Christians, never mind in places like Iraq and Syria at the hands of ISIS or ISIL, but right here in the good old United States and Canada, to a lesser extent. We had, the horrible shooting in the church in North Carolina. We had the shooting at the State College in Oregon, where Christians were clearly being targeted. To a lesser extent, but still quite odious, we have a varsity high school coach in Washington State who was basically ordered that if he went down on one knee at the 50-yard line or the end zone to lead his team or even opposing players or football fans in prayer, that he could lose his job. I mean, can you imagine that going on? This all plays obviously into prophecy. It's so I guess we are as Christians, when we're persecuted in such a way, we actually should feel kind of good about it, really, because this is all part of the plan, right?
Well, yeah, no, that's a great point, and we've got a laundry list of these things in the United States, and I think about the Houston mayor that was petitioning the pastors of their sermons and was threatening to put them in jail. I think about the Christian cake baker, the Christian flower shop owner, and the persecution there. I think the targeting of Kim Davis. She was targeted by the radical gay agenda, purposely so. And the radical gay agenda has admitted, they've been speaking for years in the United States, Richard, prior to the Supreme Court ruling about gay marriage, that they were going to use a gay marriage ruling as the foundational jumping off point for the direct targeting of churches, Christians, and Christian organizations. And they're making good on their promise. So in the United States and Canada, Richard, we would have to admit as Christians, you're a believer, I'm a believer, that we are not persecuted under government edict yet. I mean, there's no laws, I mean, if you were in the Middle East right now, there's government edict to persecute Christians. If you're in North Korea or China, there's government edicts to persecute Christians. We're blessed to not have that. But don't you see us sliding towards that? It's a like it was in Nazi Germany. It started with this process, but then it wound up focusing in on people groups and putting them to death.
Well, absolutely, and the Supreme Court ruling, which as you have pointed out in articles for WND and other legal scholars have pointed out and are starting to petition now, just a horrible court ruling, illegal. We had two Supreme Court justices that should have recused themselves because they were lobbying for and adjudicating in gay marriages. We have the Supreme Court decision 2 years earlier, which reaffirmed the sanctity of traditional marriage.
Right.
So it just it goes on, and yet as the dissenting judges pointed out, this is going to cause a huge schism in American society, and it has. Yeah. It's pitting. Americans, it's so divisive. It's pitting Americans against Americans.
Yeah.
And so that's, and they warned that this is going to cause huge trouble. So we are now starting to see this happening. So absolutely, it's a slippery slope, and we may not have government edicts, but it's going to give people, they're going to feel they have license now.
Yes. Yes.
Persecuted, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court decision is the closest thing we have to a government edict, even though it doesn't call for the persecution of Christians. It certainly, like you just said, opens the door. It builds the foundation upon which more intensified persecution can develop, right?
And that's the problem there. That's one of the major issues against this Supreme Court ruling is that they don't have the constitutional power to issue government edicts, but they seem to think that they do. I mean, that's, as Huckabee himself said in a debate, this is a grade 9 civics class. The Supreme Court does not have the constitutional power to make new laws or to create new rights.
Thank you. In fact, one of the challenges I've given when I'm interviewed on this all over our nation, sometimes I blow hosts out of the water, that are kind of leaning a little more towards, it's the law of the land. And I stop them and I say, really? Name the federal law. Name the federal law that binds gay marriage to all 50 states. Name it. Name the law that Congress passed and the president signed. Well, they can't. And then they say, well, it's the Supreme Court decision. I said, wait a minute. Show me in the Constitution where the Supreme Court can make a law. Well, they can't.
Exactly.
So they're not.
Everything that's not specifically mentioned in the Constitution, and marriage is mentioned nowhere in the Constitution, everything not mentioned in the Constitution falls under states' rights.
Exactly. Richard, we're out of time. You do radio a lot. You know how this works.
I do indeed.
Tell people
Thank you so
tell
much.
people again about the conference and how they can find out all about it and get tickets. We got about 30 seconds.
As in the Days of Noah, starring Carl Gallups,
Yeah.
L.A. Marzulli, talking about the return of the Nephilim, the fallen angels, giants, the alien abduction phenomena, and the understanding of the trumpet days of Noah. Wednesday, November the 4th, in Toronto at the University of Toronto. For more information, go to my website, strangeplanet.ca, click on the live events page, and you are there.